Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Part 3. Let's continue. So, this gentleman has arrived at the, well, he'll tell you.
All the water's out of it, it's getting work done to it. Some work getting done to that. So there's the hotel here. That's the Hilton Garden Inn. That's the one that's closed to the public for the foreseeable future, basically. So let's go and have a little walk around. We're going to go do the long loop. We'll walk all the way around and then we'll get down there. Let's see if anyone wants to come out and have a little chat or...
2 mistakes to stop in order to get in shape.
I always say stop doing cardio if you're trying to lose weight because
I'm a vlogger.
Yeah.
I do vlogs, yeah.
But you know, I love
Hundreds of on outside, a few people downstairs looking around. Yeah, there's people looking at me. But yeah, man. It's weird, you know. It's kind of strange because, you know, this place went from being open and I was having a beer here, we're chilling out the front here, and people had weddings and everything booked, you know, and events and everything, just to close down instantly for hundreds of strangers to stay there, basically, and for everyone else's lives to be put on hold. Anyway, I can see a security guy looking at me now. I think he's grabbing his little thing. There's going to be a security guy coming over to me now because he's grabbed his little microphone thing and he's walking over. But anyways, let's see what goes on here. Hello.
Are you filming?
I'm filming my village here. Yeah, I live here.
Yeah.
I'm a vlogger.
Yeah.
I do vlogs. Yeah.
But you know, I love it. It's a private now. It's
This
not,
piece here, yeah. This is not. No.
Yeah, this is not.
This is okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this is okay. But but you can't film here.
Yeah.
This hotel. You can't,
I can film anything.
yeah, you can film anything.
Not
in this boundary.
No, I agree. I can't walk there.
Yeah,
But I can film whatever I want. I grew up in this village since I was a young boy.
It was very...
I know. I'm quite interested. Are you willing to talk, or
Sorry?
are you willing to talk to me about this? About what's kind of
No.
about what's going on here? And
I don't know who's inside, but
are you the security?
yeah, I'm here.
You're the security people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, my name's Guy. I'm just a local guy, basically. I'm a local man
Okay.
who. Yeah, I'm a hiker, so I was just explaining I'm going up there for a little walk.
Enjoy yourself. Have a
Yeah,
good time. Have a
you
good
too,
day.
man. Anyways,
Thank
take
you.
care. See you later. There you go, folks. Let me just check I'm still recording. Yeah. He didn't want me filming. Obviously, you just saw that, and that's what I've seen on videos, you see. One of the guys walked past me there. Someone who's staying here, obviously, he didn't have anything to say. He just continued to walk. But you saw that then, instantly came up to me. So basically, to walk around this whole thing, you're allowed to walk around this whole thing legally. I can walk around this whole perimeter. But he was telling me from that point onwards, from that hedge basically, it's private property now. That's what his words were, I think. I'll have to go back on that.
So I don't want to play his whole video. You go and play it and check him out. He's excellent. I'm just, like anybody else, folks, he's doing his own thing like I was, and then you get this obvious nonsense appear, and I don't mean any disrespect to Nicola Bully if she's a real person, but all this is absolute hype. Is going somewhere. There's a master agenda going on, being conglomerated together by smaller agendas, countrywide, worldwide, and this is what we're pointing out. No fear, folks, just pointing it out so you can be aware of what's going on here. So that's what these videos are about. So let's move on. Go and check him out. He's so basically he's proving to you that the Hilton hotels are now basically, and no disrespect, but they're sort of Eastern. I say Muslim because they seem Muslims seems like the cultural religion, you see, whether they well, I don't know which countries they're from, so I'm not even going to go into it. Whichever countries they're from, the idea is to bring in what people are calling immigrants, so non-UK people, basically, and that's for a reason. There's a reason for this. So let's go further and point out this reason to you folks. I don't know if you've seen this, and I won't play much of it, but listen very carefully to the beginning conversation on this very staged piece of footage. And I'll tell you why it's staged, because it opens up with a religious conversation between these two men in the foreground here, in the red top and the grey top. Looks like one Muslim, one black, because it is. The gentleman on the left is, let's call him black, with no disrespects. Most people know that as a normal word. We could call it, what's the new word? It used to be, sorry folks, I'm so not up with the correctly political names. I'm trying to think of what a black person would like to be called, because you can't call them African because he may not be, maybe American. You call him African American because he may be from any other country where black people are. I don't really know what to call other than blacks, and no disrespects. And the gentleman on the right, I mean, what do we call him? If we usually say Muslim, but so black's not really a color, folks. It's like a name, like white isn't really a color. No white man is really white or woman. They're just, so please, let's not get into that. I'm just going to use the words that I know, folks. So yeah, we have a black gentleman and a Muslim gentleman, and that's the idea of this video, that they're trying to portray that, yeah. And they start with a religious conversation, which is very interesting. So it's showing that the agenda, because this is obviously, this footage is so staged, it's so for hype. It was 3 years ago this was done. It's a video, starts with a little religious discussion, but it's really about the guys in the background. You'll see obviously the Muslim guy and the black guy, Jedi and Muhammad, and they're like the leaders of their community in London, so that, you know, they like are leaders of the black and the Muslim communities. But what they're trying to do here, the media, is use these two leaders of the two communities to show people, not to show people, to try to get people to understand. No, they're not. They're brainwashing you, folks. They're making you believe what they want you to believe, which is that there's tension between Muslims and blacks. And there's obvious tension between whites and Muslims and blacks. That's always like tension going on. And this is the idea of the Hilton hotels, I believe, that they're going to build tension, racial and cultural tension between blacks, whites and Muslims, until you have all-out war on the UK streets. That's where this is heading. So listen to this conversation. All he said was, people say God. He said a bit before, but people say God, this religion is like that, this religion is like this, and that's the topic. He's in the foreground to deliver the title of this. It's about two different religions between two different cultures, as you're about to see clearly. So this is Jedi, you see, the black guy. And the guy in the red shirt, you'll see very shortly. Not this guy. This guy is Muhammad in the red shirt. Now, what they have is they have a bit of tension, and they want to have a fight.
I was disturbed what I saw. Because what I saw was that you were ganging up on him. Ganging up? How did he get ganged up on? You holding him and you punching him in his face. You were ganging up. What I saw, Jedi. Bro, I was trying to hold him back. I was trying to hold him back. I appreciate it, but hold on. You had Matthew hitting him. You had that. You were holding him. You had that kick him on the floor. If he hit that guy, one guy kick him on the floor, bro. Him and him having a fight.
So what do you want me to say about it? Did I ask anyone to do anything? What do you want me to say about it? People are going to react how they're going to react. I got no control of it. So why are you coming to tell me what?
What I'm coming to tell you.
No, man.
Come on, fam. I'm speaking real, bro. That's unacceptable behavior, bro.
What do you mean unacceptable? You said some
Number one.
Have you got a rule book for me?
It's your own principle.
Come on, behave, man. Behave. Have you got a rule book for me?
Listen, folks.
Have you got a rule book for me?
No, but that's what you said.
Have you got a rule book for me?
Yeah, but that's what you
Listen.
said.
Tell me nothing about
That's your rules.
behavior, fam.
That's your rules,
Tell me
bro.
nothing about
You said that's acceptable.
I don't go by your rules.
No, but you
There we
said
go.
your rules. You said that's acceptable. That's what you said. You understand? And here comes the man. Here comes the man. Bro, Matthew, bro.
Folks, this is a psyop. This goes on for like 33 minutes, and there's other videos on it that go on longer. These guys walk around following each other, all the cameras, building up as much tension as possible, acting like they're going to fight, but they never fight. What is it about? It's about letting the population know, about letting the civilians see cultural, religious disharmony. It wants you to understand that there's conflict between blacks and Muslims, and there's obvious conflict between whites and Muslims. That's why wouldn't there be? White people went into Muslim countries, white people, there's been conflict with black on white for yonks, everybody knows that one. But now you have a trilogy, black, white, Muslim, and that's what this is building up. There's enough whites and black people in London and in UK. Now they're infiltrating Muslims in, setting you up for civilian war on the streets. So that's what this was to point out. That's what the Hilton hotels are about. This is where this is going. So, more so, and furthermore, we have the group called Antifa. Now, this gets into complicated grounds for people, but it's very simple, really. Antifa are anti-fascist. Antifa believe the police, the government, and all the regulations and rules of the male-dominant society upon us, the slave race, making us work, and the recent one extending hiring the age and lessening the pensions, as it were, or extending the age until you get your pension, treating people disrespectfully, kind of a despot controller society, or not kind of, it is. Utilizing the police through the government. So the deep state used the government to use the police against the people. So this, you get the group called Antifa, which have risen up now, anti-fascists. Now, they are anti-fascism. So they are anti the police who stand in the way of the government, because they're actually anti the government, but they're actually anti the deep state. So they anti all this control and domination. Unfortunately, the way they are anti is through violence when necessary, simply because they believe that violence meets violence, which it does. That's the law of attraction. A tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. Violence meets violence. That's what happens. It's the law of attraction, so they say. It's more the law of creation. Violence causes more violence. Breeds. Let's say violence breeds violence. So they're not really a violent sort of party, the anti-fascist Antifa, but the police and the government, well, the government through their policing body are a violent, and the police being the body are the violence. They are violent. They deal with violence. That they deal with violence. In other words, they deal violently with people. Not all police, not all situations, of course not. And they're not all bad. There's nothing, not slanting police at all. What I'm saying is that the ultimate step for the police is shooting somebody dead. That's the ultimate step of violence. You're taking somebody's life. Everything between beatings, hittings, pepper spray, truncheons, koshes, fists, boots, whatever else they've got, did I forget something, is all violence. So these guys are meeting violence with violence. They don't see why we should be treated with violence as civilians and not give violence back. Tooth for tooth, eye for an eye. Violence means violence. Simple, no? Here is the problem. Just like sometimes people dress up in police uniforms and act like police officers or mimic police officers or fake being a police officer. They're an imposter in that moment. They're acting as a police officer. And of course there's a regulation against that for whatever the word is, I lose it right now, but for acting like a police officer. So in the reverse is the same thing. You've got Antifa, this anti-fascist group, all dressed in black. You can't see who they are. That's part of the idea, that they're all blacked out and they're all covered up, acting out their part for their reason. But it's very easy for another little group to put on black clothing like police, looking like Antifa, and cause all sorts of bad press for Antifa. Just as it is for people to dress up like police and cause bad press for police. So you get both sides doing both things. So be careful that when you see a police officer, it is a police officer. And be careful that when you see Antifa behaving violently and doing something that you think is wrong, that it is Antifa. And that goes for every other group. Make sure that who you are pointing fingers at, which group, is because of the group's action and not because of a mimicking group. So that's just a point about Antifa, the anti-fascists. Now, there's a bit more about them because they were used in America, weren't they? Within the Trump elections and such like. And you can go and look at all of this, folks. You can go and see what these guys are all about. Let's give them a voice for a moment.
It's important that we don't give the state a monopoly on violence. The police are part of the executive branch. The police serve Trump, who's a fascist. Police violence is no more justified than anti-fascist violence. Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Two common...
Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Your government or your people?
Tactics employed by cops are snatching individual people and stragglers and then kettling or like surrounding the whole group.
So he's talking about the two tactics of the the police. They snatch and grab individuals, vulnerable people, because they can't target a whole group, and they peddle around, which is they circle the group and basically enclose on them and cause them to react. So that causes violence, really. And they try to deter, and they try to go down their own ways. As you'll see, they come up against this.
Protesters and then arrest them for failing to disperse.
There was the first violence, of course, by the police.
Always make sure you stay moving.
It's not by Antifa. That was the first violent acts by the police. There's no need for that. And there they deter and they go the other way. They just outsmart them every time. Take a different route, stay together.
You'll hear people shouting "tighten up" all the time, and that means that you have to stay together. target.
The most violent people at any protest are the police.
So it's that simple, folks. That's how it works. That's Antifa's game. They're just basically meeting violence with violence. I mean, what else are you supposed to do? I'll just tell you at this point about Mahatma Gandhi, one of the most peaceful men in the world. Spent his whole life preaching peace. Preaching turn the other cheek. No need for violence. And in his last days, when the shit hit the fan, he was known to say, if I had a gun now, I would use it. And you'll find that with most people. You'll find that with the Native American Indians too. The Native American Indians were a peaceful race. They didn't have weapons. They had musical instruments and shamanic tools for their spirituality. Their art was not war. Their art was peace. They lived amongst nature in harmony. They foraged and hunted. Any weapons were for hunting. Of course, when the Spanish came, the conquistadors with old Christopher Columbus, meaning the messenger of Christ. Christopher means Christ, and Columbus means messenger, from Columbo, from the Latin. A messenger of Christ. He came to give the message of Christ, God, religion, Christianity. He came to kill religion into the people, which is kind of a paradox. It's a bit ironic, isn't it? So he basically came and said, you will accept God or you will die. So that's not exactly too godly of the Christian Columbus. Anyway, it's not too Christly, is it? I don't believe that Jesus would have carried out such behaviors. The real Jesus, that is, not the mimically strange, long-haired white man, which Jesus could never have been, by the way, having been born in Bethlehem to Joseph and Mary, who I believe were of the region, Jordanian, from Jordan. I may be mistaken, but I may be completely mistaken, but that area. Hence he was around the Sea of Galilee later and such like. So it makes him pretty much dark brown people with curly dark hair, because that's the type of people of that area. Yet Jesus is a white man with long locks, so I don't, you got to think about it, folks. It's no blasphemy. It's just working out what's real and what's not, what faces are real and what faces are really not. It's nothing to do with the Jesus Christian story whatsoever. It's to do with psyops and conspiracies that are not theories but facts. So let's step this on to this gentleman over here, and sticking with psyopses. And folks, I said to you at the beginning of this, in part whatever, and this is part 3 or so, that I'm going to point out to you the whole picture. I'm going to put in all the puzzles. I want you to see the picture now, because the noose is tightening around your neck and you don't have much time. The psyopses are everywhere. The agendas, the psychological operations, the brainwashing, the lies, the deception are everywhere. Ukraine, and this gentleman's going to explain to you the Ukraine concept right now. The Ukraine-Russian war, yes, it is a war, but it's not the war you think it is. It's not the propaganda you're hearing on the news and all this nonsense. He'll explain in a moment. And the Antifa that got such a bad name because they were against the Trump rallies. They got the anti-fascists, but they didn't get the anti-fascist name. They more got like domestic terrorism name. But that came from the multimedia, when basically they were trying to bring down Trump and not let him get into power, being who he is and what he's done. It pretty much was a good thing to bring him down, but it didn't work. Or it did in a way. And if you go and watch that Antifa video, they'll explain to you exactly. If you're interested in the Trump American side, that video that I put up, just go and watch it on YouTube. It'll explain all that. What I'm touching you into is quality individuals, quality channels to listen to, because they know what they're talking about, especially in this occasion. I'm not saying listen to them ever again, it's up to you, but what they're saying here right now is super valid. And what I'm utilizing each one of them for, and I hope they don't mind, and full respect to your videos, and I'm sending everybody there, is to show you the psyops in their words, so that's not just me telling you it, because I could tell you it all night. And to show you that these psychological operations, these black operations, these agendas are being carried out in Russia, Ukraine. They were carried out in, and are still being carried out in Iraq, Iran, Syria, that whole scenario. They were carried out in Kuwait, in the Falklands, remember those? You have to go way back to that. All the agendas keep being carried out, and now you've got the UK, it's coming big time. Serco, the Chinese social crediting system, online, blah, blah, blah. They're coming to, to do their bit. So, if you're interested in the Ukrainian story, listen to this gent for a few minutes, and he'll explain.
The current Ukrainian leadership in the military, the generals in Ukraine, they went to military academies with the generals of the Russian armies. They're drinking buddies since when they were back in 18-year-old, 19-year-old plebes. They know each other. They don't want to kill each other. Of course not. I mean, you've got some buddy when you were drinking out when you were 18, right? You want to kill him? No. You could be on opposing sides of whatever contest, but you don't want to hurt him. Of course not. You'll be pissed off at him maybe, but you don't want to kill him. The Russian army doesn't want to destroy the Ukrainian army. They could have done it already in these 3 days of combat. Once the Russians owned the skies over Ukraine, they could have done whatever they wanted with the Ukrainian army. They could have annihilated it, just blown it to smithereens, and blown away the entire population of Ukraine if they wanted to. They could cause a major, major humanitarian crisis if they wanted to, and they obviously don't. How do I know this? Because they haven't done it. They have had the opportunity for 3 days to do it, and they haven't done it. I'm doing this stupid video from a hotel room in downtown Kiev, and I'm going to upload it to the internet. Do you think I'd be able to do it if the Russians were really serious about conquering Ukraine? They want to capture it. Understand that. And understand that you in the West, you are being goaded into thinking that Putin and the Russians are like evil Antichrist. You don't understand why the Russians are invading. And your political leadership, Boris Johnson, Joe Biden, all these people, they don't want you to understand. Of course not. They want you to just demonize, just to take the easy way out. They want you to imagine that this is a Marvel comic book movie, and that, there are white hats and black hats, good guys and bad guys. Yeah, we gotta kill the bad guys because we're the good guys. Yeah. It's so naive. The Russians don't want to harm Ukraine. They would have destroyed Ukraine if they wanted to. But they don't. They want to capture it in one piece. Now, you can say that Russia's motivations are this, that, the other. It doesn't matter. You have to look at the practical reality that is taking place now. What really bothers me, and perhaps this isn't a wise thing for me to say while I'm still in Ukraine under the Zelensky regime. What really bothers me is that the Zelensky regime has no trouble causing a humanitarian crisis. In fact, they welcome a humanitarian crisis. They would love to see dead Ukrainians. And I know this for a fact. And do you know how I know this for a fact because the Zelensky government has been handing out AK-47s willy-nilly to the civilian population. As I understand it, they've already handed out 10,000 AK-47s and munitions to match. Now, you see, if you've never had any kind of military experience, you, with a weapon like that, you can become extremely dangerous to all the people around you and to yourself.
So, folks, there it is. It makes common sense. Go and watch Rubina Merchant. Thanks, Rubina. Sorry it was so long. Hope you don't copyright me, but I'm just trying to get the same message out. Go and watch him. He explains to you very categorically, excellent explanation of exactly what's going on. And he'll tell you very simply the Russian strategy. Their strategy. The Russians are being super strategic, which means super careful. Instead of just going in and obliterating everything and then coming in and rebuilding like the Americans do, they preserve everything they can. All the power stations and the electricity, all the water stations, everything that they can, all the big infrastructure, they do not want to damage it because they want to control it. They want to take it for themselves. This is not about Zelensky and Putin. This is about the deep state controlling that whole USSR again. This is about the deep state taking the whole area and controlling it. Globalists controlling the whole, more land, territorial gain. The Russians want a Russian government, as Rubina Merchant explains, thank you for explaining that, but wants a Russian government in Ukraine with a Ukrainian army run by Russians, which run as a Ukrainian army, cooperate, and Ukrainian citizens run by Russian government, which cooperate and run the city without having to build it up too much, because they didn't destroy it too much. So as Rubina says, they simply approach the big cities. When they get resistance, they step back, they circle around, and they wait, and they just wait it out until the handover. It's all a political ploy. It's not a world war. It's not a big anything. It's no big deal. And one of the main things Rubina explains to you is he says, most of the refugees, most of them thousands, hundreds of thousands of people leaving Ukraine are women and children because they don't want to be there with all this disturbance, of course, but men, because the men are being conscripted from 18 to 60 and they don't want to be conscripted. They're men, they're businessmen, they're workers, they're peasants, they're farmers, they're whatever they are, but they're certainly not soldiers. And they'll tell you that themselves, they're not soldiers. So they don't want to be in the war. So they're trying to escape. Anyway, that's basically where that psyop is at, which is the Russian-Ukrainian psyop. Now, the Russian-Ukrainian psyop is all about this, isn't it? It's about white hats, black hats, red hats, blue hats, green hats, yellow hats, and grey hats. Not sure if you know about this, but there's a lot of hats out there. Kind of taken from the old cowboy days, the black and white hats, but good guys, bad guys idea. But the rest of the hats, they all have their own sort of specific sort of area. Now, when we say hats, we're talking about psyops, psychological operations, okay, through online psychological operations, which generally have a political agenda or something like that. So the black hats and the white hats became quite obvious in the Trump Biden struggle elections, and each side took a psyop, and they weren't really against each other. They were just there to see which psyop is more supported by the public, so they know how to manipulate the public more. It's all a study, really. So they threw the George Floyd psyop. It wasn't a murder of a black guy whatsoever. It was a setup, a complete and utter setup to get a Black Lives Matter reaction. Okay? The whole idea, and that was all hyped up and led by false Antifa people within it causing disturbance. The Black Lives Matter psychological operation was set up so that it would gain donations to support it. Those donations were traced directly back to the Biden administration through, if I remember, something called Blue Act, or Act Blue, through Act Blue. So check it out. Go and Google Act Blue. And if you follow that, I think I'm correct in calling it that, you will find that that was the name of the operation under which all the donations and funds towards Black Lives Matter went. And Act Blue is the name of the Operation Success for Biden's presidency. It has a whole category of where all the donated monies went and how much, and you're into hundreds of millions, maybe billions, if I remember correctly. Long time since I looked at that. And on the other side, you had Trump, and Trump was going with the military call and with the dumps, the deep underground military bases, where so-called all these children were found, and he was going with the pedophilia, child trafficking, and how he was clamping down on that worldwide and saving all the children, basically, which is a great idea, but it wasn't true. It wasn't happening that way at all. Some of those footage of children that people really got touched by, as in several children deceased still lying next to each other, was false. It's fake. So I'm not saying sex trafficking and child trafficking I'm the one telling you it's happening, but I'm also telling you we need to stay with the truth. Let's not sensationalize and dramatize and say things are much bigger than they are, because that could cause fear. And that fear could call for security, more security, and that security could be more of your control, authoritarian domination, and the loss of your ability to freely move and be. So, the white hat and black hats are the names given to the operations for the deep state. So when you've got the black hats doing an operation, they generally the dark side, hacking for evil intent into the online side of things, and then that's carried out offline into reality, creating psychological operations like George Floyd, because an event like George Floyd being held down and so-called fakely murdered on the ground at that position where all the Masonic signs were all around the sixes and stuff that I showed in my videos previously, that event is nothing unless it's televised. It needs to be sent out to the media. If the whole world doesn't see it, it's nothing, is it? It's just one event. Like, it's just something that's just happened and nobody knows. Just like the only people who would know is the witnesses, anybody who's in the area or who heard. But due to the media, everybody knows and reacts. So that's how they control you. The puppeteers control you like puppets. They only let you know what they want you to know across the world news. North, east, west, south. News, the four cardinal directions of the compass. Which is another whole psyop having cardinal directions. So you have the multimedia, Sky, CNN, Daily News, Sun, all the papers and news, all the media, whether it's written or televised or social. You have all these media outlets psyoping you constantly, creating small events that they then televise. All the other small events equal don't matter. All the other black people that sort of had an issue with the police that day, or the police had an issue with the black people, because that's usually more the reality that day, or any other black person that got murdered by the police that day, or justly they defended themselves as usual, or the day before, the day after, that didn't get televised, just like the Nicola Bully case. All the cases before and after didn't get televised. That doesn't matter. It's just the Nicola Bully case. Why? These are psyopses, folks. Not to say they're not real events. Not to say something didn't happen. But the thing that happened is either it didn't happen, or it did happen and it's fake, or it did happen and a psyops rode on the back of it, piggybacked on the back of it. There's only three options. It either didn't happen, was meant to happen, or it was ridden on. It's either faked, so it's set up, or it didn't happen, or it did happen. There's only positive, negative, and neutral. But if it did happen, then it's covered up, and a psyop is created out of it. So that's what we're showing you about the hats. Now, let's tell you, black hats cause evil, dangerous, psyoptic shit going on the online. They basically, black hats hack and cause trouble with their hacking. A lot of trouble. They don't mind what they do. It's negative hacking. White hacks do the opposite. White hackers are positive hackers. They attempt to hack for positive reasons, whatever that means to you. So that's the white and black thing. Grey hackers are in between. They jump from left to right. They'll hack for either reason, black or white. Grey hats. Red hats are the worst. Red hats are aggressive online hackers who will, if you piss them off, attack you violently online and destroy your reputation. They super aggressive, alpha male type hacker. Green hackers are green of the gills. They're new hackers, brand new. The kind of guys that usually get themselves in trouble, but they learn from it and become black or white hackers, depending on if they go negative or positive. Yellow hackers are your social hackers, so they basically jump into your social accounts and screw you up in that way if you piss them off. Blue hackers are corporate hackers. They basically search marketing online before any project is launched, so they would do the whole search before a psyop is launched. And I think that's it. I think we've covered all the colors of the hackers. So there's variant hackers out there, folks. Computer hacking's not just a basic thing. There's lots of hackers, some doing it negatively, some doing it positively, but the pretense we're looking at it in is the hackers that use it politically for psyops out there. So you can go through and find this site, you can check it out, it's all here. So those are the hackers. Let's just jump forward to where we were. So these are the guys, these hackers do all the online stuff, all the media stuff. So everything you see about a psyop is done by hackers. They hack it, they find the information, they set it up, and the media laps it up. And everything offline is done by either the government, police, political side, or you've got your whole criminal element. You've got all your mafia and groups and gangs that can sort anything out for anybody with a bit of money. So that's how those work out. Now, folks, I'll just turn your attention to what I was talking about in general. I'm going to show you a picture of what happened in South Africa when racial, cultural collapse occurred. Racial, cultural collapse. And people say it wasn't racial, it was political, like poor people against businessmen, i.e. the richer people in that case. But to be honest, folks, this type of thing of white and black hatred has been brewing since apartheid days in South Africa. And all that's happened is you've had an influx of Indian, Muslim, Pakistani, different cultural people. So now it's not just black on white, it's different cultures on different cultures. And really it is the businessmen on the poor people, and the poor people kind of revolted and had enough of the business. They had enough of the divide between not being able to get jobs and be those business people, as it were. But of course this was like stoked and prodded and moved on and, you know, caused, instigated by various political groups for their own political agendas. And the real general thing is that anarchy, cultural and religious collapse, domestic violence, civil war in the streets is usually when a system is coming to the end and it needs to be completely destroyed and somebody needs to be blamed, like the citizens. And then another system is offered. And we know we are about to move into the smart era and smart computers and 5G and all this kind of control, and it goes way further than that. As soon as you've got your smart cities and your smart apartment, the idea is that you end up staying in your smart apartment and don't go anywhere, i.e. that's why the CV plague, the genocide on humanity in 2019, had part of it in that psyop called a lockdown. Now the lockdown was to prepare you for the future, where they're going to tell you it's also going to be a virus, but this time it'll be an alien virus. But anyway, we'll get to that. And they're going to tell you in the future that you need to stay indoors and be locked down for your own safety and security. It's always for your own safety and security. But you've got a nice place, we've done you a nice smart city, everything will be delivered by drone and whatever, the automated, and you just press what you want on the screen, it'll be delivered. You don't have to leave your home. Also, you can't leave your home because that would cause carbon emissions, and that would go against the net zero that we're trying to reach. So we don't want you going outdoors and breathing and driving your car and your aeroplane and making boats move. We don't want anything to move that's got engines, because we want to bring the carbon status down to zero. So everybody just cooperate. It's good for the planet. It's the green movement. Stay indoors. And we'll tell you when you can come out, when the carbon is low enough. And that'll be your first mistake, folks. Because the carbon will never be low enough. And if it is, there'll be another problem. And you will never leave your indoors again. You will be indoors forever. And if you think I'm joking, folks, you need to follow all the various psyopses that are being played out, and the various deep state armies that are being created of clones, non-emotional beings. Do you think when these guys come in black with helmets that they're the police? Who do you think's behind those black armed type deep state warrior looking characters? That's exactly who's behind it. It's the deep state forces. Those are not police. Those are not government owned. Those don't have to abide by government rule. Those are deep state officers. Those are deep state agents, not officers. Deep state agents. They're not officers of the state. They're agents of the deep state. They're not officers of the state. They're agents of the deep state. Yeah, they're beyond the law. You've got to understand, folks, there's not just a government and police. You have the deep state and the agents. It's a whole different area called the secret government, correct? So, folks, the issue is that it looks like to me that the psyopses across the world, both in the USA and in the UK, which, by the way, through the Postmaster General, the UK, especially under King Charles III, he is also the King of the United States of America. Yes. Look at the Postmaster General and follow the trail, and you will see that the King of the UK is the King of America. He has full rule over America. In fact, he's the King of the world. He has full rule over the realm. He is the King. The King of the United Kingdom is the King. You will see that if you follow royalty, monarchical trail all the way back to Germany, to the Gothenburgs and such like, and you will realize that that's the lineage, and you realize that the outward lineage from the UK over to the Americas was all through the monarchical lineage. So King Charles is in charge, but he doesn't make the decisions. He's got corporations and bodies and militaries and all sorts that make decisions, you know. People that make it for him, and I'm not sure if he's in the know at all of anything. But regardless of that, it looks like the world is revving up for civil war. America is full of different groups, ethnic groups, racially and culturally different groups, political different groups, and so is the rest of the world, specifically the UK. The UK and America look like they're gearing up for civil war on the streets, domestic war, outright war. And what will happen is the deep state will fund the war with weapons and become more rich. The elite will become more rich while the peasants kill themselves. That's the way they look at it. They will cause the slaves to turn on each other, and they will arm each side, and the slaves will kill each other for the elite, while the elite laugh and watch. It's Hunger Games. You can watch it on internet. Hunger Games. You're playing into their hand, folks. This is what it looks like.
Violence since the apartheid era.
They must know that they will shit with us and they get it.
Fueled by inequality, the pandemic, and the arrest of a former president, protests and looting erupted across the country.
I'm looting because we apply for jobs, they don't give us jobs. We try and go to offices, try and strike, it doesn't even work.
Over 330 people have died across South Africa after a week of violence. In a country where half the population live below the poverty line.
For just $67, you can make as many videos as you want. And you
Sorry,
never
folks.
need to pick up a camera or you...
Everything, our whole life, everything is just gone. They've burnt everything.
It's just absolutely devastating. What happens here? How long is this are we going to take to get back onto our feet?
As Durban descended into lawlessness, vigilante groups formed to protect private property.
Because we can't live like this. This thing has to end.
Amidst the carnage, the scars of apartheid reappeared. Left helpless by South Africa's failing economy and corrupt government.
It's not about race or anything. It's not about race. It's not about race.
This is the inside account of a week that brought the Rainbow Nation to its knees.
So folks, you can go and see Vice News. Don't want them to give me any sort of crap about copyrights. But check it out for yourself, folks. I'm showing you. As the guy says, it's not about race. But it is as well. But what it's about is rich and poor. That's what it's really about, folks. And it will come to that. At the moment, it's still a little bit about race, because there's apartheid tension from the past, and rightfully so. I mean, if roles were reversed, I would also be doing, revenge acts. I mean, if you saw what I saw then you would know. Anyway, let's not go there, folks. You seeing it in front of you again anyway, it's crazy, and it's not about race, it's about rich and poor and the divide. And that's where it's coming to for whites and blacks and Muslims and Pakistan and Indians and everybody. It's the rich and poor and the divide. The rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. And not just that. It's not like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer and that's okay. It's like the evil behavior towards the poorer than thyself, as it were, than the rich, the elite. So the elite are forcing the poor to suffer, the lesser fortunate to suffer. The type of world that is being imposed upon every single human being is one of suffering from an evil intent, from an evil deep state, through infiltrated into the government, forming that to be evil, infiltrated into the police, forming them to be evil, and coming from a much higher source. The hand of evil involved here is not exactly human. It's very dark, demonic, but it's manipulating humans to be sort of human, subhuman, semi-human, etc. So that is how it looks, folks, when all hell breaks loose, literally, and a country falls into disrepair and people turn against each other due to money, due to money, due to rich and poor, due to rights and no rights, due to suffering and not suffering. And that unfortunately is everywhere in the world. So as soon as the divide becomes as large as it is in South Africa, and the same dynamics are set up in America or anywhere else in the world where you've got elitism and peasantry, masters and slaves, the slaves will turn on the masters at some point. And this is the point. In history, it seems like everybody's turning. I'm not justifying anything. I'm not saying poor people should attack hard-working business people and their businesses. I'm just saying the way they see it, there's a divide that's so big they can't bridge the gap, so they're going to neutralize it by making everybody poor and destroyed, as it were. It's a kind of a revenge sort of attitude or thinking process. Anyway, folks, that's basically it on how possibly a civil war is brewing in Western nations and how it's been instigated by psyops. And just to bring you back to another psyop that we just dealt with recently, and I'll refer you to the name that my cursor is running under. So this document you can access. It's written evidence from Miss Rebecca Smith. It says that I'm Rebecca Smith. We're talking about the Rebecca Smith, or the SIO, she referred to herself at, the Senior Investigating Officer on the Nicola Bully case. This was when Rebecca was a little younger. I'm Rebecca Smith, Clerk, Inquest Manager, and work with and for Senior Coroner, Mr. Andrew Walker. I've worked as a part of the Coroner Service for 11 years. I'm employed by Hingae Council as part of the administrative support in North London Coroner Service. My role is as Operations Manager for the North London Coroner Service. Well. That's your Becky, Rebecca Smith, CIO, Senior Investigating Officer, working alongside Adley, Dr. Adley, Coroner Adley, HMS Coroner Adley. Now then, it is believed that she is working for and with HMS Coroner Adley at this time and date. I will show you evidence of that if it is true and valid on the next video. I need to bring it up. I believe I have that document. Reading on, I make my submission at this time referring to 2 of the 7 points of terms of reference. The extent of unevenness of the coroner's service, including local failures, and the case for a national coroner's service. 2. Improvements in the service for the bereaved. When you read on, folks, as in 2, I have provided a coroner's service overview providing the committee with evidence of the work undertaken over by the last 3 years to improve and reform the coroner's services in line with the Coroners and Justice Act 2009. Stop right there. As soon as you find an act of 2009, an act, so the Coroner and Justice Act, you're under Admiralty law, you're under Masonic law. What's happening here, folks, is they're trying to take all the little local coroners that deal with the local villages and the deaths and bereavements in a personal and emotional, empathic and compassionate way and nationalize it. So it's all done in the same way. Remind you of something like the Aryan race? All done in the same way. No emotion, no individuality. All done this way or no way. This is the way it's done. Nationalized. This is Rebecca Smith. So I'm not going to read on any further or give her any more credit, but you can read this document. It does go on, and I can send it to you if you require it. And it finishes somewhere down here. But the main important part you've seen. The main important part is this, and you can take a photo of it or check it out. That's the main important part there. The submission for the public inquiry into the coroner's service. Screenshot that if you like, and then we go up to medical there, and you can go from there. And the rest is just, well, maybe it's important to you, but I think we get the gist of it already. If you want to read through that whole document, you can just screenshot all of those. Or just pause. And that's about it. I think that's just... So that's it. Basically, folks, the idea is that Rebecca Smith wants to nationalize, demotionalize, uncompassionate, take away the empathy for the coroner service. She's been in the coroner service for 11 years already, and she's been in the police service for 26 years. So I imagine she's not that old, so the police and the coroner service have overlapped. So 26 of her years in the police, 11 of them are with the coroner service. And I believe now she works with HMS Adley. So that would put Rebecca Smith, the SIO of the Nicola Bully case, working alongside HMS Adley, Her Majesty's Service Adley. Now I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that I'll prove to you Rebecca Smith's Masonic connections, if they're not obvious already, and Mr. Adley's. We'll be proving other members involved in this and their Masonic connections by the end of this video, or the videos, and you will very soon know that every single person up the chain of command who needed to be in place for this or any disappearance of a person, in other words, a murder to occur and the person to be so-called lost by misadventure, nothing to see here, accident or whatever, So there's no witnesses, no culprits, nobody's charged, people just going missing randomly, which is a good business because you can start to sell people and bodies through human trafficking, organ trafficking, and sex slavery, and not be complicit, culpable, not be held culpable for it. So you can be complicit in all sorts of, which means part of all sorts of these crimes, and not be responsible, not be culpable, not be held to account for it, if you have a chain of command in place. In other words, a diver to find the body or not find the body, or put a body there or not put a body there. So somebody in the dive and search team to basically manipulate the information, and of course the search team, investigator, officer, advisor, supervisor, would have to also be dodgy, fake the information, Rebecca Smith. And then of course you would have to have somebody else like Peter Lawson, another Mason of course, because he's in the police, and the police are all Masons, so that makes Rebecca Smith a Mason because she's under Masonic oath, she's in the police. The police are a Masonic corporation, they have all the symbolism of the Masons all over them, I've shown you that, so obviously that makes them Masons. HMS Coroner is Her Majesty's Coroner, they're the largest Masons in the world, so obviously the HMS puts Adley as a Mason. We can go through and find the proofs of that, I'm sure, and which lodges they pertain to, and which lodges they're in, and what degree of masonry they're at, and blah blah. But you'll find them all there. So that's just to show you that Rebecca Smith is absolutely in the coroner's back pocket, and that you might recognize these people. Not so much this guy, but this guy and this girl. If you have a look at their names over here, you'll see that from the left we've got Councillors Rebecca Smith. Look carefully, in her younger day. And we have Melise Graham. We have Councillors Rebecca Smith, Melise Graham, and Peter Faulkner, who took part in a passionate debate over raising personal allowance for Melton Borough Council. So some of the councillors, if you read through it, felt awkward about it, and some of them didn't, and blah blah about raising their money after raising the taxes and screwing the people over. So remember what I told you a minute ago, that was Rebecca Smith, and this guy's name was Melise Graham, and this guy's name was Peter Faulkner. Doesn't this guy look familiar? Doesn't this guy look like Derek Clayton? Or is his name Melise Graham? I don't know. I don't know, folks. You tell me. That certainly looks like Rebecca Smith. Her hairstyle hasn't changed much, but I tell you what. Shall we see? Let's have a look. What's this here? Is this where we are? Well, let's have a look at this one. What's this one? Oh, it's Derek Clayton. He's aged a bit. He's a little more wrinkly, folks. He's aged a bit, maybe 10, 15 years on that. These weren't there before. Square glasses are still there. The nose is still there. The ears are still there. The mouth is still there. Hair's flopped down a little bit differently over the years. Should we have a look? Am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, folks. You tell me. Maybe Melise Graham is Derek Clayton. Or maybe I'm just wrong. You tell me. Oh, I just popped Derek Clayton off there, which I didn't want to do. Let's go and find Derek again. Did I do that, folks? Sometimes we click the wrong buttons. So is this? No, this was this, and yeah, I just fobbed it off by mistake. So I'm not finished with this. Let's go and get Derek back here. Let's get Derek back here. Let's have Derek Clayton. We're about to wrap this one up, folks. Let's just get Derek Clayton back here. I'll have that. Oh, we don't want that. Definitely don't want that. We definitely don't want that. We're gonna go for another Derek Clayton. Let's just choose another one, folks. I really can't go down that road. Can we expand this face without clicking on the video? There we go. Folks, look carefully. Look carefully at that gentleman and look carefully at this gentleman. Look at his... Look at this. You see this wrinkle, yeah? And here's starting, but it's quite smooth. Skin's smoother. He's aged, yeah? Only a little. He's aged a little. Folks, you tell me if I'm wrong. You tell me, please. You tell me if Melise Graham, Mr. Melise Graham, is Derek Clayton. I believe so. Which is very, very disturbing, because that means that Derek Clayton was in contact with Nicola Bully on Facebook. They knew something, and they both disappeared, one after the other, in very near areas, the River Wire and the creek. Cleveland's, was it, or Shit Creek, or whatever it was. No disrespect to Derek, but the person involved in both cases is this little girl here, Rebecca Smith, responsible for 2 covert operations teams, online operations, offline operations, high-end crime. She's involved as the SIO, the Senior Investigating Officer, in the Nicola Bully case, which has gone so weird. It's a complete and utter either a psyop or a cover-up. And she's involved in the Derek Clayton case. Derek Clayton used to be on the council with her. Derek Clayton has been on the council for years, and so has Rebecca Smith. I'm sure there's other players involved here, but these are the ones we're connecting up now. Let me know if I'm wrong, folks. Just my opinion, just what I see. Let's move on. What I'm trying to say, folks, is that Derek Clayton was in the council, and Rebecca Smith is in the council, and others are in that council. And Nicola Bully may have been in that council. We'd have to see what part of the council she played a part in, or if she interjected information. She was definitely part of the Children's Society. It was written on her shirt. Now we know about council members and their behaviours and the MPs and the deep state. We've been talking about that for a while. So just let's wrap that up and leave that there and understand that Rebecca Smith knew Derek Clayton very well because they were in the council together. and appears like Nicola Bulley was a prominent figure, so perhaps she was known to her as well. Keeping in mind all the connections of the drug bust from 6 years ago and the names and such like. Wrapping this all up, folks, and bringing it all together, I'm going to let Sandy speak here, and I'm sure, well, this is from PSYNN, so I hope nobody copyrights me. I'd like this video to go out. So I'll just play little bits of this lady speaking, and I'll let you go to PSYNN, and you can watch it there. But this is where it all comes together, folks. All these psyopses, all these murders, all these rituals, this is basically what's happening. And this is part of why. And this is where we're going. And this is going to bring in the final thing, the Green Act. Another psyop, the climate change, and how it's going to, how it's supposed to affect us. The most interesting thing here, folks, is woman power. Notice how this lady, this woman, stands up and delivers in full female energy, full power. And how the MP here, who was elected by the people here in this council, so the guy talking at the top of the table there, he's the guy who was elected by these people, so he's got to watch his P's and Q's or he won't be elected again. Watch this.
As far as this council is concerned, we're not doing 15-minute cities.
15-minute cities. 15-minute cities are. You're allowed out for 15 minutes in the hour. 45 minutes indoors, 15 minutes outdoors. I understand. I haven't read all the terms and conditions. Basically, it's a CO2 emissions reduction program. So it'll bring down the CO2 emissions by you not driving, not breathing, not walking, just staying in your house. Sounds like prison. Sounds like a guilt prison.
It means... I think the Glastonbury would fight it, wouldn't it? Well, we represent the people of Glastonbury. If the people of Glastonbury don't want 15-minute cities, then we represent that, don't we?
So he didn't say yes or no. He said we represent the people of Glastonbury. The people of Glastonbury don't want 15-minute cities. We represent that. He didn't say they don't get them. What he means is we represent that, but my masters and bosses will tell me what to do. So anyway, it goes on, and then Sandy steps up to deliver a speech. And this is just wow. Well, you know, I really want you to see this, so hopefully the guy doesn't copyright me. Hopefully he wants you to see it too.
15-minute cities. Well,
we're not doing 15-minute cities.
We represent the people of Glastonbury. If the people of Glastonbury don't want 15-minute cities, then we represent that, don't we? That's what we're here for.
Yes.
Right. Well, if we don't, you know what to do next time there's an election, don't you? So, Sandy, would you like to speak now?
So he got his knickers in a knot there. That was that's the MP there, the obviously boss man in Glastonbury. He's basically, oh well, if you don't like me, then just choose somebody else. But here comes. Watch this angel.
Thank you, and thank you. Well, Leela's covered a lot of what I was going to speak about, which is great because it leads me to look at the bigger picture. And yes, it's great that I couldn't find anything in Mendip District Council about 15-minute cities, but it's important that we know about them, and it's important that we know about low, the low emission zones that they want to.
Here goes. She's just setting them up.
Smaller towns.
Here comes.
So what I'm just saying is. Basically, this ideology isn't a grassroots, the whole 15-minute city ideology is not a grassroots initiative. It's actually a global initiative. And it was brought in by Boris Johnson.
So, folks, it's not a grassroots. It's not a new idea. It's a global agenda, and it's brought in by Boris Johnson, and here we go.
Michael Bloomberg and Carlos Moreno in 2004 under the C40 Cities International organization, which
C40's International Organization.
Khan is now the chairman. Contrary to propaganda, it's not a grassroots initiative, yeah, I've said that, but a top-down global plan under UN Agenda 21-2030.
A top-down global plan under UN 21-2030. 6.5 years' time, folks.
To really roll out the 17 sustainable goals under net zero. I know that all the green people here are comfortable with net zero, but if you understood the longer term implications of net zero, and I've given you all the absolute zero document, and I hope you'll read it, because that coloured bit shows you what is to be achieved by 2030.
So the coloured bit shows you what's to be achieved by 2030. So there's obviously a graph there that shows where we're going with this.
And that means no flying out of the UK, no ships out of the UK, no cars at all, and no, all wood burners to be ripped out of every home and every...
So that's to reduce the carbon emissions. They're going to take away all public transport. You're going to be locked on the island. You're not going to be allowed off the UK or any island you're on. No more public transport. Planes, trains, automobiles and ships all going to be stopped by 2030, in 6.5 years' time. Sounds ridiculous, isn't it? But it's true.
Appliance to be ripped out of every home by 2025.
All the fires will be ripped out so you can't keep yourself warm. What's the point? You have to be on the grid. You have to be paying for your electricity. You can't burn wood, chop trees. They're trying to take away your natural rights to living.
Now that is a government document. UK fires, absolute zero. And this is where we're heading for with net zero. We will literally be imprisoned on our own island. And this is what this top-down global control is all about. You think it's a green agenda to actually save the planet. It is not.
It is not. It's not a green agenda to save the planet, to reduce carbons. The reason is that carbon dioxide is the life gas. It's what plants breathe. And they breathe out oxygen because of that. If you take away carbon dioxide, the plants will die. If the plants die, they don't breathe out oxygen. We'll die. All animals. You, me, and everybody else.
Implemented at the Earth Summit in 1992 by a bunch of oil billionaires, crooks. And
That's where it was created, at the 1990 summit, by a bunch of oil billionaires, crooks. Yeah, it was fabricated. It's an idea. It's an agenda. It's not real. There is no climate change going on whatsoever. It's no effects of carbon, nothing. It's absolutely normal.
And all of you, bless you, are trying to save the planet, and you've been hoodwinked. I was in the Green Party in the 1990s. I left. I was a member of the Ecology Party. I left because it got taken over. It became a Trojan horse for the technocratic agenda that I'm talking about, Agenda 2030. And I tell you what, they planned this from the 1970s. It's a long-term agenda. And I would love...
Understand that, folks. That's 50 years, like I said, 100 years or 50 years ahead. 50 years ago they planned this.
To be able to give all of you a presentation. I've been on this for 15 years, and I've been giving talks all over the world about this, via YouTube, everywhere, because I'm passionate about it. I've impoverished myself doing this. So I just want you to just hear me out. We're living now in what's known as what's coming is what's known as a zero trust world. So whether you know it or not, the digital ID is coming. Now, this is a big thing for everyone to understand. Digital ID is really the way the government will actually have all your data in one place. And they're bringing this in by December this year. This is really serious. And then they want the CBDCs after that, the central banking digital currencies. Now, this has got nothing to do with being green.
So what she's saying about digital ID, folks, is that you will have a barcode or a pass or a word or a password, and generally they want that on a chip, and the chip under your skin, like the Swedish experiment I was referring to before. But what they definitely want is your digital ID, like you working through cryptocurrency, so not having any control of your money physically. It's all on numbers so that they can control it. It's basically controlled by the agency, which will be Serco, like I told you. The military-based agency which will control everything under martial law. In the end, the police will be done away with. The military will take control. You'll have martial law. So kind of like, in a way, a military man at your door, or high surveillance so that they could be in any moment. So yeah, just let's hear her out, and then we'll leave it off there until next part.
Business, it's massive business, because underpinning this whole agenda are literally capitalist stakeholders. Now, this is what's worrying, is that this whole green agenda is based on top-down control of us, we the people. And unfortunately...
Top-down control of we the people, controlling us from the top down.
People who literally glue themselves to buildings, bless them.
She's saying probably the best way is not that type of thing, is to glue yourself to buildings.
The people who want to imprison us. Well, it's communitarianism, call it whatever you like. But either way, it's not anything about our rights and freedoms. It's about destroying our rights and freedoms. And Ian, you're a butcher. Look down that list. By 2030, they want to get rid of meat and lamb and everything.
So basically, she goes on, folks. I'll let you get into it, but. She's brilliant, and she rips right into. She's so accurate. I mean, this woman knows her stuff backwards. She's so good. Let's try and catch the last bit.
The United Nations are our friend. You are wrong.
The United Nations are our friend. You are wrong.
The United Nations and the World Economic Forum are working together, and there's a document on that table which proves that the government are working alongside the World Economic Forum, and they are bringing in drone technology which will be surveilling us from the air. In that document.
So they're bringing drone technology. She goes on, folks, and she explains brilliantly. Please go and watch. It's a CNN, but go and watch this lady speak. She is superb. She really explains to you the ins and outs of exactly what is about to happen and exactly what we need to resist. She's super quality. So we're going to close off in a few minutes here, folks. Let's just wrap this up. What we got left here, that's her agenda. Yeah, folks, I'm just going to wrap it up with this here, which is... I thought I'd just let you see something, because we're going on about symbolism so much, Masonic symbolism and all sorts of symbolism. Let's look at this. These are your religions, folks. These are your religions, bar this with free trial. That's not a religion, but it's difficult to get rid of that. Let's move it up here. Well, I'll get rid of that in a second for you when I shrink down. But as you can see, we've got Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Shinto, Taoism, Hinduism, Judaism, and the end one there is Sikhism. But I'll clear it in a minute. Yeah, so you can see sort of Christianity is more white, Buddhism is more Asian over Tibetan way, Islam is Muslim, Shinto is Orient, Taoism is Orient, Hinduism is India, Judaism is Israeli, that area, and this one here, when we shrink it up, you'll see that goes away. It's Sikhism. Sikhism, there we go. So, folks, my question in finishing up, and I'll leave you to ponder on this, is which religion is better? Exactly. Which God is more powerful of these religions? Exactly. So, that's the thing, folks. Whether you've got... the God of Christianity, the God the Father, white God, Jesus' Father, or whether you've got Buddhism, which is Buddha, or whether you've got Islam, which is Allah, or whether you've got Shinto, which is got me there, and I'm not sure if Shinto has a god or it's more of a philosophy, or you've got Taoism, which obviously is exactly that yin-yang, that the small of the large, the macro and the micro, as above so below. What is micro is macro, what is macro is micro. That's kind of the emerald tablets, the Thoth, Hermes, Trismegistus, he's kind of Trismegistus is his name, Hermes Trismegistus. So this is their type of analogy of yin-yang. You've got Hinduism, is the Hindus, the pantheon of gods through the Indians, Vishnu, Brahma and Krishna. And you've got Judaism. Judaism is your Jewish religions, the Catholicism, the Jesus religion, similar to Christianity, but more of the Torah than the Bible. The Torah being the 5 books of the Old Testament of the Bible. And then you have Sikhism, the Sikhs, I think that's Turkey and that side of things over there. So what I'm showing you folks is, in front of you there's 8 different religions. There's many others, but just these 8 main religions here, each have a separate god basically, or a separate philosophy. Out of these religions and gods, who is the best and which one is right, and here's a fundamental aspect to leave you off with in this part, and then we'll go on to part 4, where I'll show you what I promised you in this part, the explanation of 12 and 13, the system 12 and the keys to understanding your reality of 13 and the system of 12. So, just to finish off with a question, folks. Which of these religions is better? Which of these religions' God is the real God? Because if a Christian tells me that his God is a real God the Father, Jesus' Father, and I should turn to Christianity and repent, and I will be accepted when I pass over into the house of God, and I go to a Buddhist, and he's going to tell me about compassion and enlightenment and the 9 steps or the 8 steps to enlightenment, which are very similar to the 9 steps of ascension via Jesus, the Christian God, which is just next to him. But these are 2 different gods, so they're not the same. Buddha and God the Father of Jesus here. But then I jump off to Islamic State, to say Morocco, and I go and I speak with a Muslim, and he tells me all about Allah, and Allah is obviously the only God and the real God. And then I pop off to, let's skip out Shinto and Taoism, but let's pop off to India, to the Hindus, because we all know, and they're going to tell me that Krishna, Brahma and Vishnu, these are the gods, and the pantheon, and this is how it works. And each one of these, then we're going to pop off to the Judaism, to Israel, and they're going to tell me all about the Christian God and the Catholic God and the Taoist God and the Jewish God and how this all works. And I'll pop off to the Sikhs, and they're going to tell me their story. Now, every one of these believes their God is the only God, the real God, and everybody else is full of shit. But what am I supposed to believe if I let's just say, I don't like the word atheist, but take a neutral point of view where you're looking at all these religions and trying to work out for yourself as an alien freshly landed on earth, which religion is which, and why must I follow this God, and which one do I want to choose and why, and how come every single one of them says their God's the only God and all other gods are rubbish and blasphemy, but each one of them say that. This is really confusing. Signing out.